I guess the context of this video is that I'm going to be looking a bit more into the actual formation of the bonnet. So one of the biggest things for engineering was that I needed a bonnet that cleared basically, and because the F20C is quite a tall motor, I couldn't close the bonnet properly for about 2 years since I fitted the engine. So it's a pretty small achievement in the grand scheme, but it's quite significant in the sense that it's one of those things that makes a car feel like it's a car again. Being able to pull the latch, open it, it's awesome. So yeah, I'll be shifting over some GoPro footage just to show the actual process itself. It's pretty average quality, I'm not gonna lie. The audio will be crap through all of this. I still need to get a mic. But yeah, hopefully it just shows the insight into a bit of the process of actually making a bonnet cowl, because I don't think there's much out there. It's a pretty simple process, but I think the actual execution of it is quite challenging. I didn't nail it, I'll be honest. This is not a perfect bonnet. It wasn't perfect to begin with, and I wasn't expecting it to be perfect by the end. So, a lot of imperfections. There's obvious sanding marks, to be honest, and I still need a wet sand and buff the clear coat. But overall, I'm pretty happy. And the main thing is that I can close the bonnet and I can pass engineering as it is now. So, yeah, I'll switch over and hopefully you guys can enjoy it. So basically, one of the engineering requirements is that I need to have bonnet clearance for my engine. So with the F20C at the moment, well, how it was originally, it would hit the bonnet at the top of the valve cover, and that won't fly. So I had a few ums and ahs. I was trying to think kind of like how to approach it. And one thing that kind of popped to mind was making like a cowl or a hood kind of bulge. And looking around, there wasn't anything that was really definitive or concise that would kind of explain the process of how you'd go about it. So I figured I'd maybe just try to document how I've done it. I don't think it's probably the best way, to be honest, but hopefully, you know, someone might come across it and they can like either correct me, tell me what I'm doing wrong, or they can take something from it and make something even better. So yeah, let me show you what I've done so far. Okay, so basically what's been done so far is this. So how I started was I followed the body line of the actual, or the bonnet line I should say, and cut along the middle of it, making sure that I kind of kept this very slight curve. I don't know if you can make it out, but there's a very small curve and you want to kind of keep that radius because that radius kind of comes into play later on. And what I've done is I've made very temporary props on both sides at specific like reference points. So for example, that there aligns with the bolt hole that's in here, and this one here is just the idea behind that was to kind of keep a consistent bulge when you look at it from the front. And then from there I've just been making filler pieces that run along like this, and the idea is that I'm going to eventually fill this all up with metal and then gradually tack into place. One thing that I kind of adjusted as I realized it wouldn't work was that initially I just wanted to kind of have the bulge straight down. So kind of typically what you see on like a drag car or something like that, I don't know, where it's just a straight 90. But when I did that, for example with this piece I mocked up, it just doesn't look right, to be honest. It makes it far more obvious than it needs to be, and I think for this car, the bulge already is a bit much. I think the thing that I like about having the tapered, kind of flared out cowl coming in is that it makes the cowl a lot less obvious than it would be if it was just a straight 90. And I like the idea of trying to keep this car as inconspicuous as it can be. So, just get a close up. It's intact in place and it's pretty shitty tacks. One thing you'll notice is that yes, you do burn through if you're kind of not careful with it, as I have been. I tried to keep the fit nice and tight. The idea behind that is obviously minimize the amount of potential warp that you can get from the bonnet. It's quite thin metal, so yeah, hopefully I can just kind of walk through or document how I do it on this side. So at the moment, these two templates are from the other side there. I'm hoping I can replicate it on this side, just flip it over. This side still needs to be tacked in, so basically here I need to run a triangle that kind of tapers into nothing up in this point. So that point there and that point there are identical. And then also in the back here, just got to make a taper back so it hits here. And then after that's done, make a fill piece that runs through the back to give some reinforcement. But yeah, hopefully I can just document at the very least the welding part, at the most the bodywork, the paint and all that, and you can see the end product. Yep, so the way I've been doing it so far is just literally got my template like this, just mock it up. So this is pretty finicky, but this here sits in pretty nicely. And the idea is that I'll probably end up trimming the end of this off here and just filling with weld and then grinding it back smooth, so that kind of this piece, when you try to cut metal to that point, it tends to get a bit of an issue. Like you tend to get a bit too much heat, it tends to kind of melt through and it doesn't end up being a nice weld. So keeping the plates a bit thick, but using this will be a good template to start. It's a bit finicky, so I didn't really film the cutting and trimming and all that, but it kind of sits like this. What's important there is that it kind of matches that profile there. This part here is not so much important because I'm going to fill that with weld anyway, and that's all going to be ground down back. So I'm not really fussed about not getting to the end there. I'm probably going to do the same thing on this side as well. Alright, weld is on. Let's try to record this and set it up. I actually figured out I missed one kind of key step, which was how to actually get that stencil, like make these pieces, filler pieces here using a stencil. So I've actually made one already there, but the basic gist of it is once you kind of have this set up here, ideally you'd have like a flat edge or something that's not close from your tutoring kids work, but you'd set it up so you'd fit it against like that. So I'll just put it here so you can see. So yeah, so basically you have it like this, you fit the piece in as much as you want. Because you have like a sharp edge, what you can do is you run your finger across like this. So basically I'm running my finger across the seam where the bonnet has been lifted, and then when you flip it around, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, you can see like a very crisp edge that's been made basically, and then that's your cutting point, and then from there you transfer that template onto the metal, and then you get this, and then this ends up fitting relatively well with a bit of fiddling. So yeah, that's your metal piece fitting in nicely there. So then that's your, I don't think I really need to explain how to draw and trace onto a metal, but you get the idea. So after that, you cut it from there, you transfer into the metal that's down there, and then you bring it up and test fit, trim to the point where it fits up quite nicely and ends up fitting. Also, if you haven't got one of these wheels are fucking mint. So basically they're like a strip wheel or something. So they don't go through metal, but they actually go through paint like mint, like very quickly. And rust as well, you can see it's all cooked and brown, but yeah, it goes through paint well, it doesn't eat through metal, and it's probably the best way to kind of quickly get rid of paint. So I do recommend one of these if you get the chance to get one. Kind of skipped ahead a little bit here. So basically what I've done is I've pretty much done both sides and I'm starting to weld it in. So I'm laying down literally tacks upon tacks. It's a bit messy, but yeah, laying down tacks upon tacks. And the way I'm approaching it is I've done a series of tacks across every part of it. So it's very messy, I know, but... And what I'm aiming to do is that I'll do tack, 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 then go up to the top, tack, 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 go down again, tack, 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 go up, tack, 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 tack. And I'm spacing it relatively far away so that there's like opportunities to cool down. I can already see though it is slightly warped, which is a bit annoying. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to beat that out or something. But we'll see how we go. Ordered it with that distortion in mind, and I've actually like just marked out where the dents would be. I've ground this back as much as I really wanted to. There are gaps. I did expect that, so I'm probably going to end up getting some like fiberglass filler, reinforcing it. But I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to beat these panels out and then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to actually do some reinforcement welds on the bottom. But I'm not going to do anything like long, basically. The idea is I want to really neaten up the bottom because you can actually, no, you probably can't see now, but like there's just like rough spots and edges. The top looks pretty good, to be honest, for the most part. Put some edge prime on it just in case it's put outside. It's actually like turned out pretty good, but the only problem is that there's dents or warpage all along the bonnet because I'm a dumbass. But luckily, like one of my good mates has a hammer and dolly set that he just had, and yeah, I brought it down and I'm gonna attempt to work through it. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it because honestly I have no idea how to do it myself. But I've watched a few videos on YouTube and it looks promising, so we'll see how we go. I need to like actually get a bit better at this. I think I've just been skipping so many steps, but basically what's happened was after it warped, I was like, yeah, I'll avoid bog. I'll try beat it out with the hammer and dolly. But then I noticed there was like a few cracks forming at the surface and I was like, hang on, that isn't just paint. It's a bit too thick to be paint. So I sanded it back a bit and this is what I found. She's definitely bog solid. Bogalicious would be the right term, I think. But yeah, so I've kind of just shit the fan. I'm like, yeah, look, I'll just literally slap some bog over it. It should be fine. And honestly, this side's not bad because I didn't really dip too deep into the actual parent metal itself, so it's relatively thin smear. The other side is a bit worse. I haven't done bog in a long time, but basically the panel kind of dips up and down around there, so there's going to be a lot of work involved with that. I'm pretty happy with the front though. The front's going to be pretty smooth once done. I think it's going to be pretty seamless. But I'm still in two minds about sanding up here and actually like fixing this kind of creases. I don't know if you won't be able to see because of the different colours, but it does dip down a fair bit. So, yeah, I'll see how it go. I'm basically going to let this sit for probably like an hour because it's pretty cold. Then I'll sand it back, see what kind of dips are left. After that, yeah, I'll keep laying bog and sanding and laying bog. Just go really slow and quite thin. Take my time because I don't really want to do this again. So basically what I've done now is I've kind of laid a layer of bog over the top pretty thin. You can kind of see that my scraper kind of shit itself and it's got like a few kind of straight lines. I want to try to fix that. It's at the point where the bog's kind of gelled up a bit, so now it's relatively okay to kind of sort out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just bog it a bit and I'll set you up so you can kind of see what I'm doing. It's pretty simple really. I'm just going to kind of, you got to press quite tight. Where there's a high spot, start with a high spot, press tight, and then kind of like gradually lower your pressure. And then kind of a bit after where you kind of want to stop your bog realistically, then you start to apply pressure again. So you kind of lay it on relatively in one smooth stroke and always kind of go in the same direction as well. Never go back or like sideways, or you kind of want to just keep it constantly going in the same grain. So that way when you're kind of sanding and whatnot, it becomes quite easy to... Yeah, so a bit's happened actually since the last film. It's a beautiful day today. So I pulled the bonnet outside. Basically I'm in the process of sanding at the moment, so here you can see kind of what I've done so far. Basically grab a sanding block. I laid the bog earlier, let it dry. And the idea is that you follow the contour. What you can see the lighter spots where it's kind of sitting a bit more proud, and the lower spots. And the idea is that you eventually want to get it so that it's consistently smooth. Naturally that does leave a few like pinholes. I don't know if you can really see that well, but eventually what you end up getting is a very decent line. So before it was kind of like that here and there, and it sat in on this side. So when you looked at it in the light, basically what happened was it was just wavy as shit and didn't look very good. I don't really like the idea of bogging, but it was the only real way to kind of get those out without really beating the panel. I did try to beat the panel before, but what happened was basically it ended up just like cracking the bog. So this isn't ideal, but I think it's alright. This is the other side, by the way, which actually is a lot nicer because it didn't warp anywhere near as badly as it did, which is my bad, to be honest. And especially at the top, the line is quite straight and consistent. So the idea is I'm trying to match that side with this side. So this, once this is all like, I guess, flattened out and I guess straightened up, the idea is that I want to kind of match the, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, kind of the transition from like this down to flat. I want to kind of make the same here. Before, this side was quite vague in this transition, this side was quite defined, so I did end up adding a bit of body fill, and it's kind of made this a bit more smoother. I don't like the idea of kind of having the transition too thick as well, but kind of can't really avoid it because this side, the metal, is actually quite vague as well, so it doesn't really help the situation. But I still think after laying this bog down, it should help the process just a bit better. And yeah, it'll be ready for color, I think, once this is kind of flattened out with the block and spray puttied, maybe spray puttied and then kind of sand back down again. We'll see how we go. But yeah, between the last video and this, basically all that I've done is just laid the bog, sanded it, blocked it down, and try to compare with the other side and match it. But yeah, that's what it looks like from the front.
So that was
really
just the panel. I was just like showing as a demonstration before, and you can't really tell the profile, but it
feels really good along here. There is a slight dip here, but you can't really avoid something like that. But considering before how it was all over the place, having just that slight dip there, for me that's a win. It's at that point where I think after it's kind of sprayed down, it should look pretty good. So yeah, once again, I missed quite a fair bit. So basically, from the last clip, it was literally a repeat process of sanding, bogging, and spray putty as well. I got to the point where the spray putty was relatively okay. It's definitely not perfect, but it's at that point where it's probably as good as you're going to get. You're going to get to that point where you're looking for imperfections that much, so you're basically trying to boil the ocean. You can't really... It's a futile mission. Like, you're just going to be gone for days and days and days, and realistically, with my skill level and the tools I have, I'm not really going to bother with that, especially for a bonnet that's pretty hack. So once I got to that point where the 80 grit was pretty sufficient, I went to 180, yeah, 180, got the sanding marks to the 80 out, and then went to 400. I laid down the first dusting for the color, so you can't really tell, but what happens is with the color, it's actually masked quite a lot of the imperfections already, so I'm pretty happy about that. Obviously it's not perfect, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. So the idea is that I'll actually set you guys up. So basically I'm just going to repeat the process, let it sit for about 5-10 minutes like this, let it dry, like tack up a bit. I've got 1 can of colour, so I'm hoping that can last me this whole thing. And then after that it's clear coat. So let it sit for another half an hour after the final colour coat and then go from there. Clip spec, tell you that much. Can love to just spray properly, but really not worth it.
Started to splatter.
I don't know what the real deal is with that, but basically little bloody dots came out, so don't know. If someone knows, let me know why that is, because that's really frustrating. Oh well, this one was never going to be pretty, so what can you do? Round 2. I've cleaned the tip a bit, we'll see how we go, but I think the idea is to kind of go past, check the tip, go again, because I think what's happened is, I don't know if you can see, but it's basically dripping down here. I reckon it's like falling, I don't know, but keep it close behind it, see how we go. Can't do much else. Yeah, just keep going I guess, can't do much else, so we'll see. Alright, so for the most part, it's actually pretty good, but as is always the case, like when you lay the colour, I'm just showing you right now, you can see a lot of the imperfections, so don't know if you can see. Oh yeah, you can see there's lots of iffy spots running along this, Let's see. This car was never meant to be perfect. Like, I'll be straight up. This bonnet was going to be butchered for the sake of functional clearance of the engine, obviously. So, for engineering, what the requirements are is that I need to have 10 mil clearance from the moving components of the engine. So what I did was, I'll probably overlay a picture of how it started, but basically I had a wooden block here that's on the highest point, chopped the bonnet, laid it over the top, made a jig out of like some scrap pieces of metal, and then made the filler pieces to do that. Like, I'll be completely honest, this bonnet was never meant to be a showpiece. It wasn't meant to be like a testament to my body working capabilities, because they are far beyond non-existent, I'd say. But obviously the idea was that I didn't want to have like a massive scoop or anything dumb like that. I just kind of wanted to have like a little subtle cowl that went over. So I think this does the job pretty well. Oh, there you go. You can actually really see it pretty good there. But yeah. So I'm not really expecting this to be a showcase finish, but I think it'll be good enough for the rest of the aesthetic of this car, which is pretty average. Yeah, so I actually skipped quite a fair bit because I was pretty frustrated, but this is what it looks like in the end. I'll tell you this much, it looks a lot better in the video than it does in person. So off the bat, I don't know if you can make that out, but yes you can. That is a thick run. Now I'm not too sure, it has discolored the top of this bonnet, but I'm pretty sure I can just sand it back probably with like 1500 or 2000, probably the whole bonnet to be honest, and then wet sand and buff. I'm hoping that'll help it out. Probably the most annoying thing is you can actually kind of see the bodywork line on this side here. This side was a bit iffy with the bodywork, I do remember. But yeah, the clear kind of really brings it out. I think, to be honest, this bonnet, it's a burner bonnet really, like it's rusted to crap. All it needs to do is pass engineering for me, and I think I've covered that now. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably let this sit overnight, and then yeah, slap it on the bonnet. I've also done the scuttle panel, or cowl, I guess you'd call it. It's just touched it up in a few spots where it was rusting before. I'm hoping that this new bonnet with the adjustments combined with this cowl won't rub. So before it used to actually rub here, and sometimes you couldn't open the bonnet without making a massive noise. So adding that cowl, I'm hoping, has given me just that tiny little bit more clearance, just to kind of help that come along as well. So we'll see how we go. Honestly, I'm pretty happy. It's just, I know it could have been better if I was a bit more patient. Took a little bit more time. It was definitely better than what I was about to leave it as. So I'm glad I did spend another day bodyworking it, but yeah, it's by no means perfect, and I didn't think it ever would be. But yeah, it's better than having a bonnet that doesn't close. So probably wait till next time, leave this overnight, and I'll fit it up probably tomorrow or day after.